Section 5. The Case for Human Unity. A critical conclusion present in the logic that defines the Zeitgeist movement's advocation is that human society needs to unify its economic operations and work to align with the natural dynamics of the physical world as a single species sharing one habitat, if we intend to resolve problems, increase safety, increase efficiency, and further our prosperity. The world economic divisions we see today are not only a clear source of conflict and destabilization and exploitation, the very manner of conduct and interaction itself is also grossly inefficient in a pure economic sense, severely limiting our societal potential. While the nation-state competition-based structure is easy to justify as a natural outgrowth of our cultural evolution, given the resource scarcity inherent historically, and the long history of warfare in general, it is also natural to consider that human society could very well find purpose in moving away from these models of operation if we were to realize that it is truly to our advantage as a whole. The determinants and inefficiencies of the current model, when compared to the benefits and solutions possible, are simply unacceptable, and the efficiencies and abundance possibilities extrapolated within the Zeitgeist movement's advocation for a new socio-economic system rest in part on a concerted effort by the human population to work together and share resources intelligently, not restrict and fight as we do today by design. Beyond that, the social pressures and risks now emerging around technological warfare, pollution, environmental destabilization, and other problems show not only a logical gravitation for true global organization, they also show a rational necessity, and the xenophobic, mafia-like mentality indigenous in the nation-state today, often in the form of patriotism, is a source of severe destabilization and inhumanity in general, not to mention, again, the substantial loss of technical efficiency. Section 5, Part 2. False Divisions. As noted before, the core basis of our survival and quality of life as individuals and as a species on the planet Earth revolves around our understanding of natural law and how it relates to our method of economy. This premise is a simple referential understanding where the physical laws of nature are considered in the context of economic efficiency, both on the human and habitat levels. Understanding that the planet Earth is a symbiotic, synergistic system with resources existing without nationalistic biases, coupled with the underlying causal scientific order that exists in many ways as a logical guide for the human species to align with for the greatest societal efficiency, we find that our larger context as a global society transcends all notions of traditional and cultural divisions, including loyalties to countries, corporations, and even political traditions. If an economy is about increasing efficiency in meeting the needs of human population while working to further sustainability and prosperity, then our economic operations must take this into account and align with the largest naturally relevant system that we can understand. From this perspective, the nation-state entities are clearly false, arbitrary divisions perpetuated by cultural tradition and not logical technical efficiency. Section 5, Part 3. Origins and Influence. Broad organization of society today is based on multi-level human competition. Nation-states compete against each other for economic and physical resources, corporate market entities compete against each other for profit and market share, and the average workers compete against each other for wage-providing occupations and hence personal survival itself. Under the surface of this competitive social ethic is a basic psychological disregard for the well-being of others and the habitat. The very nature of competition is about having advantage over others for personal gain, and hence, needless to say, divisions and exploitation of both humans and the environment are fundamental attributes of the current social order. Let's quickly consider the root origins of this competitive, divisive model. It is clear that the evolution of human society has included a history of conflict, scarcity, and imbalance. While there is a debate as to the nature of human society in the period preceding the Neolithic Revolution, The Earth since that time has been a battlefield where countless lives have been taken for the sake of competition, whether material or ideological. This recognized pattern is so pervasive, in fact, that many today attribute the tendency for conflict and domination to be an irreconcilable characteristic of human nature, with the conclusion that the human being is simply unable to operate in a society that is not based upon this competitive framework, and any such attempt will create vulnerability that will be exploited by one power over another, expressing this apparent competitive dominance trait. This empirical power abuse assumption has been a large part of the defense for the current competitive divisive model, using a general, broad view of history as its basis for validity. However, the specifics of the conditions in those periods, coupled with the known flexibility of the human being, are often disregarded in these assessments. The historical patterns of conflict throughout history cannot be taken into account in isolation. Detailed reference to the conditions and circumstances are needed. In fact, it is likely accurate to say that the dominance and conflict tendency, which is clearly a possible reaction for nearly all humans given our need for preservation and survival in general, is being provoked by social influence more than being the source of such reactions. When we wonder how the massive Nazi army were able to morally justify their actions during World War II, we often forget the enormous propaganda campaign output by that regime, which worked to exploit this essential biological vulnerability. Section 5, Part 4, Self-Interest. Adam Smith, who is considered to be the father of the free market, made popular the assumption that if everyone had the ethic to look out for themselves only, this would actually serve whole communities in the best way possible. His invisible hand notion of human progress arising from narrow, personal self-interest alone might have been a workable philosophy many years ago, when the simplicity of society itself was based on everyone being a producer. However, the nature of society has changed greatly over time, with population increases, entirely different role structures, and exponentially increasing technology. The risks associated with this manner of thought are now proving to be more dangerous than beneficial, and the definition of self-interest itself is taking on a larger context than ever before. Is it not in your self-interest to protect and nourish the habitat that supports you? Is it not in your self-interest to take care of society as a whole, providing for its members so that the consequences of deprivation, such as violent crime, are reduced as much as possible to ensure your safety? Is it not in your self-interest to consider the consequences of imperialist war that can breed jingoistic, fierce hatreds and perhaps result in blowback, such as, say, a suitcase bomb exploding in a restaurant behind you as a desperate act of abstract retribution? The bottom line is that things have changed in the world, and your self-interest is only as good as your social interest. Being competitive, going out for yourself and beating others only to have negative consequences in the long run, is to deny awareness of the whole system in which we are all bound. A suboptimally made nuclear power plant in, say, Japan might not concern people in America. However, if that plant was to have a large-scale technical failure, it could release radioactivity into the Pacific Ocean and affect ecosystems that we are all a part of. This is already happening right now, by the way. And if another earthquake should collapse the entire building, then the spent fuel rods could release radioactivity into the air that would drastically increase cancer rates for everyone in the entire northern hemisphere. In the end, only a view that is conscious of the earth and humankind can assure a person's true self-interest in the modern world today, when such considerations are taken into account. The very idea of wishing to support your country and ignoring or even enjoying the failure of others is a destabilizing and unsustainable state of affairs. Section 5, Part 5, Warfare. The days of practical warfare are over. New technologies on the horizon have the ability to create weapons that will make the atomic bomb look like a Roman catapult in its destructive power. Centuries ago, the damage done by warfare could at least be minimized to the warring parties in general. But today, the entire world is threatened. There are over 23,000 nuclear weapons today, which could wipe out not only all of the human race, but virtually all life on Earth. In many ways, our social maturity is being questioned at this time. Sticks and stones as weapons could tolerate a great deal of human distortion and malicious intent. However, in a world of nanotech weapons that could be constructed in a small lab and have enormous destructive power, our human self-interest needs to take hold of the institution of war and systematically shut it down. In order to do this, nations must technically unify and share their resources and ideas, not hoard them for competitive self-betterment, which is the norm today. Institutions like the United Nations have become complete failures in this regard because they become tools of empire building due to the underlying nature of country divisions and the socio-economic dominance in this property, monetary, competition-based system. It is not enough to simply gather global leaders together at a table to discuss their problems. The structure itself needs to change to support a different type of interaction between these regional groups, where the perpetual threat inherent between nation-states is removed. Either human society recognizes and begins to act on this logic of using the scientific method for social concern, or we will suffer in the long run.